Creative E-commerce. I am TJ Highland, joined with my colleague Ben Stein. And this week we have Kirsty Verity of Real Coaching with us. Kirsty, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, thanks. Yeah, we were just saying earlier, the sun's finally out because I'm in Montreal, right? So it's been 5 months of freezing. Now the sun is back.
And the snow's gone. Snow's gone.
Snow, yeah, finally. Yeah, there's like probably one little bit on my front lawn. So I'm just waiting for that to go. So yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Awesome. So for anybody that doesn't know Kirsty, she herself is the CEO of an Amazon business. But more importantly, why we have brought her on today is she's a co-founder of Real Coaching. We're going to go into the difference between coaching and courses and what coaching can do to help you and your Amazon business take it to the next level. So what Kirsty did was essentially make a radical change in her life after 20 years as a corporate marketing director, kind of dove into the entrepreneur world and into the world of Amazon. Like I said, she now runs her own very successful multi-million-dollar Amazon business and Real Coaching. So why don't we just jump right in? Kirsty, tell us about Real from a high level.
Yeah, sure. So I co-founded Real with Isaac Coleman, and as you said before that, I was in a corporate environment. So I was in that kind of wheel, which probably a lot of people have been for the last 20, 30 years, which I did used to enjoy, but I kind of got to this point where it wasn't fun anymore, right? I was kind of the sandwich between the cool stuff, so getting stuff done and, running ads and doing all that kind of cool creative stuff, to making sure that the shareholders were, their needs were met. And so it kind of gets to this crunch point where decisions are being made that don't make any sense. And I'm the type of person that's just like, well, that just is a stupid idea. Like, why would you do that? Right. So, yeah, I always used to get called a square peg in a round hole, right, in the corporate environment. So I kind of got to this point where I was like, okay, I don't want to continue doing this thing. I need to find something else. And like a lot of people, tried lots of different things, right? So I tried real estate, but I didn't have any money really. I didn't have a lot of cash. So I wasn't like, okay, I can't really go and flip houses because I can't afford to buy them. And then I did a course on share trading, which I was like, yeah, why did I do that? Right. It's just not something that I would even see myself doing. And then I did one on eBay. So like how to brand your own products and sell them on eBay, which was a bit more in my wheelhouse because my background was physical products. So I worked on Durex condoms. I worked on Pedigree, Whiskers, Panadol, if Aussies are listening, that's a big analgesic brand. Ribena, which is a big drinks brand in the UK. So very different. And Aquafresh and Sensodyne toothpaste. That was kind of my final role, was oral health. So very different target markets, but it's the same principle, right? You kind of have a formulation or you've got a product. It comes underneath the brand. It meets a customer need, and you brand it and you sell it, right? You sell it for more than what you bought it for. So that model made a lot of sense. So eBay was great, but it just wasn't consistent. And also it just felt a bit like, I don't know, like Monopoly in a way, like or playing a game, right? I just didn't feel like it would be a sustainable business. Also, there was a lot of infrastructure that was needed where you were, getting warehousing and stuff like that. I'm a person who likes to keep things simple. And that's when I also read the 4-Hour Workweek, where I was like, okay, this makes sense in terms of, rather than finding something that's going to replace money, it was, what do I want the money to do, right? So I had a really good, long, hard think about that. What did I actually want? And one of my core hobbies, I suppose you call it, or key passions of mine, is travel. I just love traveling. As you can tell, I'm English. I moved to Australia when I was, in my late 20s. Absolutely loved it over there. We traveled a lot in Asia. And so I wanted to do more of that. And I wanted enough money to be able to do that. And reading the 4-Hour Workweek was like, that makes a lot of sense. So find something that's actually going to allow you to do that, where you're not stuck in one specific spot. Right. And having gone through all those iterations, I then was on someone's email list, as you are, right? And then there was an email there to do a course, which was ASM at the time, which is still ASM, but I was the first intake of ASM. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a veteran.
That's OGs.
OG, man, in the house. We had nothing like, obviously ASM was there, but it was really all about getting a product, right?
Right.
There were no launch strategies. It was like just hope for the best, stick it up and see what happens, right? So that's what I did. But the thing was, because I'd done everything else, I then kind of knew this was going to work. I had no idea why, but I knew it was going to work. So what I did was and I'd been talking to my HR director. We had a great relationship, and I was like, I'm over this, right? And they were also wanting me to move to a different market, maybe Singapore, something like that. And I was like, yeah, but if I want to really do my entrepreneur thing, I don't want to get a new job and have to recreate all that stuff. So we had a chat, and I was like, well, if I move anyway, you guys are going to kind of put these roles together. So why don't I just leave, and you don't have to get me another role, and you can kind of give me a nice little redundancy. And so that's what we did. And so I got a safety net of nearly a year's pay because I've been there nearly 10 years. That's one good thing about being in a corporate, is they do look after you very well. And that gave me a great safety net. And I was like, okay, I don't know if you've read Napoleon Hill's book. What was it called again? Anyway, it'll come back to me later. But it's his classic, clearly, that I can't remember the name of, which is all about, burn the boats. If you've burnt the boats, then you can't go back, right? And so I'm a bit extreme like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going out. I've told everybody I'm doing this business and I'm not coming back. And so I took the redundancy. And then to basically see if this would work, I went to Bali and thought, okay, it's cheaper to live, sunshine all day, happy days. I'll just kind of completely change my life to make that break, right? I know not everybody can do that, but that was just something that I felt like I wanted to do. So I did that, set up the business, got it moving. And within like 3 months, I was at $10,000 a month. Again, still not with any specific process. But I think in my corporate life, what had helped me was understanding how to build a brand, how to get focused, how to build the numbers. I knew what I wanted to achieve. And so I kind of put those principles in place to help me build a foundation for the business. And then I figured out then where to put the focus to get the sales and the conversion rates and all that good stuff, right? So that's kind of how I approached it. And then what happened was I kind of went to conferences, chatted to people, and I just thought everybody was doing this, right? And then like within 6-7 months, I was at $100,000 a month. And my first year was 1.2 million. And I'm thinking everybody's doing this. And so, of course, when you meet people, they're like, oh, how did you do that? And so I ended up on stage at one of the Silicon events at that time. And the guys, we just had a chat like we're having a chat now. And then loads of people were like, okay, show me what you did. How did you do it? And so I was like, I just followed the thing, but what I didn't realize was that a lot of people get bogged down in decision making or making wrong decisions because they weren't looking at the right data, or they weren't building something that they actually wanted to build, right? And so we all had the same information, but I suppose I had the experience in the background that informed decisions that I was making. And I kind of started helping people, just mates, friends that I'd kind of met along the way. And essentially what I ended up doing for them worked, right? And they were like, oh my God, it works. And so then I met Isaac, who's the co-founder of Real. We met at an entrepreneur camp thing. I think we were probably very drunk at the time. And we were just like having a chat. And he was doing a similar thing with people, just friends that he'd met. And so we said, well, one of the core problems is that piece, right? There's loads of courses that are showing how to do it, how to find a product and put it live on Amazon, right? How to get sourcing and all this sort of stuff. But a lot of the courses are not actually, number one, putting it in front of people in terms of what do they want to build? And then number two, how to build a sustainable business, a long-term business that's going to pay you money. Because those foundations are just not there in a lot of courses. And so we decided, okay, what should we do first? Now, we love to travel. So we had this crazy idea. There's also at that time, which you probably can't even think of now, there was no one doing it live events really, apart from conference like Silicon. So we said, let's do workshops. Let's do live workshops, because that way we're able to sit down with people, work with people, get them, a quick result, and we get to travel and do loads of cool stuff at the same time. So that's how we started Real. Then it was K&I or PKI, because we had another guy involved. It was, basically a great brand, right? It was Paul, Kirsty, and Isaac, right? So it was PKI. And we went from Sydney to Vegas to Austin to Toronto to New York and then to London in 6 weeks. So we did a 3-day workshop every week for 6 weeks. I was absolutely knackered after that, as you can imagine. And then as we did that, people that came to the workshops were like, well, can we continue working with you? And so we were like, okay. So then we kind of started doing that. And then we've been doing that ever since, essentially. So we've just kind of, made sure that structurally it makes sense for a lot of people. We're always improving. Obviously, Amazon does a lot of changes, all that kind of stuff. So that's how Real kind of grew. That was a very long story from your first question, but that was kind of how Real grew from both our experiences, but also, how it evolved over time.
So before my second question, a pop quiz question is, are you still selling your first product?
Yeah, I am.
Really?
Yeah. It was an awesome product back in the day, right? So it was one of those first kind of like unicorn gem, that type things.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of competition has come into the market since then. So whereas I used to do like 200 units a day on that thing, like it's now, 80, right? But it's still doing all right. Yeah, exactly. But
sure.
yeah, I'm still selling the same product. Yeah, from day one.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, Ben and I, we sat with you and we sat with Isaac, and we looked through the platform that you guys have, which is really incredible and talks through a lot of, the data points and the action items and the information that you probably did at those workshops, and now made it more accessible for kind of people to take on demand, where it's not necessarily courses and, this is how you do this, but if you're in this situation, if you're in that situation, kind of the decision making. And that's just one thing I want to hear from you, where, what do you think makes coaching different than courses?
So I think a course is great because it gives you bite-sized pieces of information, and it's correct information that you need, right? The issue I think sometimes people run into is you forget the human element, right? So, you going through a course, it could be a completely different way to the way I go through a course, because I've got different needs. I've got different emotions around why I actually want to build a business. I've got different resources. So I might have more money, I might have less money than you to invest. Also, I might be better at making decisions than you, right? You might want a lot of data to make a decision. I might just be one of those people that wings it and just hopes for the best, right? And so a course is great to digest. It's like reading a book. You're going to digest it, but it's not really until you experience things that do you actually really understand where the roadblocks are going to be. And so with a coach, we're always like, 10 steps ahead, right? Because number one, we've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, made the mistakes. Number two, we can anticipate where you're going to have the roadblocks, because most people have the same roadblocks at the same point. Usually it's picking the product, right? Or it's then the next phase is then, should it be this supplier or this supplier? Now there's a course to go through it to find a supplier, but how do you choose the right one for you? Also, just little things like, even how do I even get my listing doesn't work properly. Like I can't get the right keyword to populate. How does that happen? Right. So that's kind of like, they sound very small things, but those things stop people from moving forward. And usually, we always say failure is only failure when you actually stop doing stuff, right? And so a lot of people, I've met people that did ASM1 that have still never launched a product because they're too scared to pull the trigger, right? They think they might fail. And there's always, it's not just the physical thing. There's usually a lot of an emotion behind why people don't do things, or why people don't feel like they can be successful. And so as a coach, what we do is we want to, number one, find out exactly why you want to build this business in the first place, right? Sounds trite. Everybody says this thing, what's your why? But a why is not just, I want to do this because I want to make more money, right? A why is an intrinsic emotional touch point, which is, I want to do this because I want to spend more time with my family, and I want to spend more time with my family because right now I feel like a failure as a father or as a mother, right? That's the real true emotional thing. And we want people to get really in touch with that and be honest with themselves about what they want to build. Because the
Right.
problem we found is that you get to a point where there's loads of opportunity out there. There's so much opportunity that it becomes overwhelming. And so people feel like they need to be doing certain things. If they see, lots of big sellers out there, hey, I'm doing $1 million a month and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And they feel that that's success, when really it's not success. It's success for them potentially, but for you, you might want $5,000 extra in your bank account every month. So let's just go for that goal first, achieve that, and then let's put the plan in place basically to achieve that goal first. So you're not overextending yourself, and you're finding the right products and putting the right plan in place to achieve that one, and then you can move on from there.
I think I love what you said about how, pulling from your own experience, really, understanding what you wanted and the decisions that you made and how you made those decisions, and then translating that into, customized coaching for your clients.
Yeah.
So, taking all that experience, right, you're sitting down with the client, you're going to understand their goals, you're going to show them the data. What are some of the steps or like the hurdles that you have to work through with these clients that you think sellers often run into when, they clearly need to make a decision and they're just stalling out, as you mentioned, or they're not confident in launching their product?
Yeah. So we actually do have, we call it our product analyzer Bible, right? So, but basically we take into account all those costs and kind of pitfalls that a lot of people run into after they've launched a product. So generally what people might do, I hope a lot of people do this, they would look at a profit margin, right? But they usually look at just a gross profit margin, which would be how much they're going to sell to the customer for. And that's where a lot of people go wrong as well, which I'll touch on in a minute. So how much they want to sell a product for, then minus the cost of goods, minus the FBA fees, happy days, there's your gross profit. Where people go wrong is they don't actually assess what the market is telling them that product is worth. Because again, there's a lot of people out there that will say, hey, if you build the best product, and Isaac talks about a golden toilet, right? It's like, yeah, there's plenty of toilets out there, but at the end of the day, you want to build a golden toilet, but how many people want to buy a golden toilet, right?
Yep.
And so it's awesome, it's made of gold, but at the end of the day, you still take a crap on the toilet, right? So there's only so many people that are going to spend money on that thing. The Amazon game is a balance between volume and value, right? And so to be able to get ranked for major keywords, there needs to be a certain amount of volume there, and you need to be able to compete with that to get the best bang for your buck when it comes to launching products. So I'm not saying you have to be cheap. I'm just saying you have to find products in a niche that you can be competitive price-wise with. It could be slightly higher, could be slightly lower than the main competition. But what you don't want to do is be so completely out of realm that you're never going to get the volume to hit that. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they go, yeah, I can make loads of profit on this thing because I'm selling it for this. But no one wants to buy it for that, right?
Mhm.
It's just part of marketing 101, regardless of whether you're selling on Amazon or what you're selling. So that's number one.
Right? Also,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've got to think of the marketplace that you're in. I might sell something, the same product at a very different price point and package it slightly differently if it was going into a different store than what it is, say, if I was selling it in Walmart, right? I might be selling it in a specialty store, might be a different price point. I might put something different in there because it caters to that customer. But when you sell on Amazon, you're selling to the Amazon customer. So you have to think that way, right? It's not just general Joe Blogs in general, right? It's literally an Amazon shopper shops this way, but they also want great quality, and they'll keep coming back to you if you've got great quality at great value price,
Right.
not cheap, but value. So got to start there, make sure that you've got great profit margins to start with. And we aim for at least 35-40% margin, gross margin. Then we go on to cash flow, which is a major problem for people. So what happens is they find a great product, they think they can, obviously make a profit. So they'll have another decision point. How much do I buy? Oh, the supplier is telling me I need a minimum order quantity of 10,000. Right. Okay. So without the right knowledge or experience on how to negotiate, they go down that track, right? Can end up spending $20,000 on inventory when really you only needed to spend, say, $3,000, right? So that's another decision point. Either they don't go at that point because they don't have the budget, or they go and then they're left with a bunch of stock that's going to take them 10 years to actually sell through. So a data point that we have there is we like to aim for 3-month stock, when you're launching a product, maybe 5 months, because you've got some launch stock going on and there's longer lead times and all that stuff. So
Right.
we're taking into
Getting
account the lead
established.
time. Exactly. So, but we want enough inventory, right, to launch. What's the point in launching with 100 units and then you're out of stock, right? So you've got to kind of build that in, and that's experience as well. We've all run out of stock and it costs us a fortune to re-rank. So you want enough stock, but not too much. It's kind of the Goldilocks effect, right? So we work that out, and then we say, okay, this is how much you've got, and we work it out based on how much you think you can sell, right?
Right.
Can you afford that? Can you afford that first order? Yes, no, that's another decision point. And then we look at return on investment. So for every dollar that I put into this product, how much return am I getting back? And we like to aim for at least 150%. So for every dollar, that means I'm going to get $1.50 back on top of the dollar that I've spent, right? Whereas if you get a return on investment of 50%, that's basically I'm only going to get 50 cents back for every dollar that I spend. You're still making a profit. You're just not getting as much back from that investment. And I usually equate that to real estate, because most people kind of get that analogy where, you're buying a house, you spend 100 grand on it. If you've got 150% investment, you get 150 back, 150,000 back on that, right? Versus 50,000. So it's a better investment. But
Right.
we don't really think of products that way because it's a smaller investment. But when you actually add all the product up that you're going to buy, it's a bigger investment. So that helps with cash flow, and volume helps with cash flow as well. So then if you end up with a product that only sells one every 5 days, you've spent all that on inventory, but it's going to take you a long time to get the profit back in the business. So we want a certain amount of volume that's going to bring cash flow back. And then the next trigger that we look at is advertising. So we all know that we're going to have to spend some money on ads. So how much is it going to cost for your main keywords to rank, to get the volume that you need to actually sell that product? And that's one key thing that a lot of people forget, don't even think about, and especially when they're new, have no idea about, right? And so if you don't understand that, you could be in a situation where you launch a golden toilet, you just didn't realize it was a golden toilet and it was going to cost you, $10,000 to launch it, and you haven't got that budget. So we make sure that we look at all those points, and we've got a few more as well. But in our Bible, we actually now have weighted what those points actually mean, and it'll spit out like a nice opportunity score based on their budget and their needs, because it all always links back to their goals as well.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a long answer, but there's a lot of data points there to think about.
I think something interesting that we saw in your platform is sort of like, I forget exactly what it's called, but basically like the inventory calculator, where you budget how much you're going to sell each month, and it's directly related to cash flow, to if you need additional capital to make that second order, or if you're operating at 150% return, like you mentioned, then maybe you need additional capital for that second order, but by the third order, you already have enough capital coming in from your existing inventory. So it's, that's ideal situation where, everything's selling and, margins are high and, your listing's fine and, there's no FBA delays or anything like that. But, what do you think on the back end? So for a more experienced seller, so if I'm a seller, I had a great product, maybe I hit, the beginning of a fad and, I sold a ton. Now I'm trying to grow my brand. This original product's just not doing it anymore. And I've hit that wall, and I can't find that next product. I can't, I have some cash in hand because I saw some success, but, going from a beginning seller to the next step, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they see?
I think people are they don't, it sounds accusatory, but what I mean is a lot of people don't really look at metrics, right? And they don't look, and if they do look at them, they're not looking at them on a consistent basis. And by that, what I mean is exactly what you've just kind of described there. Ideally, you want to be totally on top of the business so that you see those trends happening, so that you can actually rectify things as you go. So the core things that we look at is your sessions, which is the amount of traffic people that come into the listing, the conversion rates, so how many people are actually buying, and then have a plan or levers, what we call levers underneath those, that you can pull when one of those things starts to go down. And you also then need to figure out what the root cause is, why, right? It could be there's been a flood of competitors into the market and everybody's coming in at a low price. So then as a seller, you have to think, do I need to do anything about this? Or is this just a watching brief, right? Is this just something I need to keep an eye on? Or is it the fact that for whatever reason, some of your keywords aren't indexing anymore, right? And so you're not being seen in the search engines. And so if that's the case, then you know what you need to do there. So the idea is that you should always be looking at those core metrics, have some benchmarks for those metrics. And then once you start to drop, if you don't keep on top of it, that's when, when people come and say, oh, my listing got dropped off page 1 overnight. Well, generally it's not overnight. It's just they haven't looked at it. Then they look at it one day and it's gone. They're like, oh my God. And then they don't know why. And so that's what I would say is always be on top of your metrics. Now, if it gets to that point where it's like, you know what? And we, a lot of people have had this where they've had a product, maybe it's got flooded with lots of competition and they don't want to play the price game, right? And so and I've done this with some of my products where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play that game. I'm actually going to be happy with ranking for these keywords where it's not as expensive. I'm going to take a hit on the volume and but I'm still going to maintain my margin, right? And that's what I'm going to play there. I was doing 200 units a day. Now I'm doing 80 units a day, right? So, or then I'm doing 50 units a day, but just be good with that decision and then move on, because it's like, okay, well, what else do I have to launch to hit the goal? And it's always going to be that way.
Right. It's back to that decision making. That's a point where somebody could say, I need to make 200 sales a day or move 200 units a day to hit my goal. But do X and Y, potentially you can combine them and still hit that goal. But people get stuck on certain things. And obviously back to the experience and the value that you and Isaac and the rest of your coaches provide is, seeing beyond today, beyond tomorrow in terms of getting, to the next step, to the next phase. Yeah,
exactly. I think as well to be able to make it okay, right? Because I think, especially if you've had, we call it, you're allowed to get rid of your children, right? In this scenario, because a lot of people, you've put blood, sweat and tears into that first product or that second product, and you got it to that point. But there's no point in wishful thinking about what could be. You have to really face reality and go, this is what it is. And there's usually always a better way to do something, because like you said, if you then take some of that cash, invest it into another product, that product could do better than this product you've already got. And you're diversifying in case something happens to one product or the other. So it's another key thing I see with a lot of people when they launch variations as well. And they feel like by launching a variation, it's a new product. But generally what happens is, unless it's got a real reason for being, if it's just a different color or a different size, but for no reason, like if you've got a belt that sometimes you might need a different size, but basically you're just usually cannibalizing the sales that you would have got off that one product anyway. And you've doubled the amount of inventory that you need to hold and all that stuff. So I would say when you're making decisions, you want to make it based on the goal that you've set yourself in the first place. And if that variation, I would say, is not going to get you there because you've made the decision based on a customer saying, I really did wish you did one in pink, right? If you haven't got any data to back that up, apart from one person or maybe 3, then there's kind of no point doing it, right?
I love the idea of making data-driven decisions. I think it's what is making companies successful, whether it's something we've seen in the last few years or dashboarding or whatever it may be. I couldn't agree more. It's keeping your finger on the pulse, right? It's how you're going to notice trends, how you're going to see decreases or increases, or, the white space analysis, whatever it may be these days. And it's going to help entrepreneurs succeed. To that point, I guess, what are some of the lessons that you either, learned the hard way or lessons that you've seen, your clients learned and how those lessons help them, build their business, or how they help you build your business?
Yeah, I think there's kind of probably 2, there's more scenarios, but 2 key ones. One for new sellers coming in is what we've just been talking about, right? Is just thinking, okay, I need to get a product live, don't understand the numbers, they launch it. Then they think they need to do some advertising. So they put some advertising in there with no plan. And then they're like, oh my God, this thing's sucking all my money. And they turn everything off. And then they go, crap, I'm done, right? It's because they haven't really understood the numbers. That's one key mistake I see a lot of people making, is either going out too early with nothing to back it up, or just not making the decision because they're fearful it's going to go wrong. And I think the one for existing sellers, or probably two there as well, actually. One is everything's going great. You've had some awesome success. So let's just keep doing more shit, right? So let's do a Shopify store. Let's do some Facebook ads. Let's do some YouTube stuff. Let's get some influencers, because once you're in this game, there's so many different avenues that you can use to grow your business, right? And so then a lot of overwhelm comes in. Usually they'll buy a lot of courses of those different areas. But the one thing that they haven't really figured out is actually how to build a big business leveraging Amazon first. And so when things start to go wrong on the Amazon side, they're totally overwhelmed. They're not looking at the metrics like we talked about. And then they've put kind of pieces of resources into all these other areas that are a whole business model in themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of trying to do too much too soon, too early, like there's a race going on, right? So I see that a lot. And they take their eye off the ball. I know, because I did that myself. I spent like 60 grand on trying to get a Shopify thing moving. And what I didn't understand was that the margins and the conversion rates on Amazon are like amazing. Like I was getting, I get 30-40% conversion on Amazon listing, and on a website, the best really you can expect is 3%. And I had no idea about that, right? And so I'm spending all this money and driving ads. And I'm like, I'm never going to win here unless also I change my whole business model and offer something that is more a lot higher margin. It's not a volume game, right? So I learned that the hard way. And another key thing I learned the hard way was launching too many products all at once in too many markets all at once. So I'd had awesome success. I thought this thing was going to last forever. It was going to continue. And, I'm hot shit and all this other stuff. And so I just put a lot of money into inventory and launched a lot of products all at the same time across, US, UK, Germany, France, Spain. And not everything worked. Whoopie-doo, of course not, right? And so I didn't have the infrastructure there it was just me and, a VA kind of figuring out where are the gaps, where are the leaks, what's going on. Like I just didn't have a handle on the business because I had too much going on. And I'd also stuck a lot of money in inventory. So I had 400 grand, $500,000 stuck in inventory that wasn't selling. That was pretty, a scary time. So
yeah, I can imagine it's a tough lesson learned to slow down a little bit, continue to capitalize on the successes. Don't spread yourself too thin and just focus on what's working.
Yeah. So I get people's ambition. And I always say, I don't want to be the ambition police. Have the ambition, but then be realistic, ground yourself in reality of exactly what you can do to be able to get there. If you want that, build a team, help get you there, get some processes involved. But if you think that just because you sold 3 products and it's going really well and now you want to sell 10, it's not a great idea.
Yeah.
By yourself. Yeah.
Right. And to get to those 3 products, you didn't launch all 3 at once. You launched one and then another as you saw mild success. So, going from 3 and adding 7 at once to get to 10, it's kind of, how would you expect it to do the same? Because how much effort you had to put in each time to get to even just those 3. I think back to your point, we talk about Amazon every day almost, or probably. And to your point, a lot of people have sort of a love-hate relationship with Amazon from the seller perspective. Mm-hmm. But I think and someone once said to me, it's a necessary evil, for the fact that exactly what you mentioned, the organic traffic coming to Amazon, they've completely changed consumer behavior, where, I think something like around 50 or 60% of searches start on Amazon now and not on Google. So, when you try and diversify your brand and create a D2C site, there's much more work there. There's a lot of work to get on Amazon. There's much more work on this D2C site, or there's, more work on Walmart or on eBay or on, international, right? There's all these other considerations. So, back to your point, I think it's very much focus on one task at a time until you're comfortable in that task or that objective, I should say. Then you take your next step. But don't take the step if it's going to make the whole thing fail. And that's kind of what we talk about sometimes too in terms of international expansion or product diversification is, when you are expanding, your core business should be able to run like this, and then you can add in this one, but it still shouldn't operate this. If this one succeeds, it's going to, steal the term, flywheel effect, make this even bigger. But if it doesn't, this one's still going as is, right? So I echo and I appreciate everything you've said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I think, we feel invincible sometimes, like I said, because we, especially when you're doing really well. And that's not to take any success away from anyone, right? That's freaking awesome. Like, to build a business and get out of the life that you were in to do this full time. That's amazing. But, a business is a business at the end of the day. And sometimes it feels like the gold rush, right? Because I feel like it's such a brilliant opportunity, Amazon. I know people feel like it's still, competitive. Well, all businesses are, but it's the easiest way with the lowest amount of capital to turn that capital into income for you that I've ever seen up to this point.
Try running a physical store, right? And
oh my God,
getting the traffic and all the other overheads that you have.
Yeah. So I get the point of necessary evil. I used to feel that way as well. And so what I've tried to do is, life's fun, right? We want to have fun with what we're doing. So you kind of want to like switch it on its head and just go, this thing is actually allowing me to do these things, right? And yeah, it's like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. You're like, they're a pain in the ass sometimes, but at the end of the day, I still love them. You know what I mean? So that's how I kind of approach it. Like, trying to get onto Seller Central and you're like, it's like having an argument, right, with your spouse. But it would like be all good in the end, So I think if you kind of reframe it that way and just kind of think about what great stuff it can do. And like you said, one thing I like to think of is, with your time, money, resource, whatever, 70% of it should always go on the thing that's bringing you the most, right? Mm-hmm. That is just boshing stuff out. And then 20% should be on something that has worked for other people, and there's kind of like a process that you can follow, right? And 10% can just be like, right, this is experimental. I'm just going to wing it and see what happens. Whereas I think a lot of people go, I've got this 70% sorted, so I'm not even going to worry about that anymore. And I'm going to put 90% of my effort on this new shiny thing over here. And that's why people get lost in time, money, resource. So if you kind of think of it that way, we used to do that a lot in corporate as well, right? These are big businesses, got millions and millions of dollars to spend. But it's like, no, you got to focus on the thing that works first. Then you can add on the bit, and then you can just experiment over here and, go for a home run with that. So if you kind of think of that in your business, and you want it to be fun, then do that without losing your shirt, right?
While still trying to make profit and still running a successful business and hopefully, living the ideals of the 4-hour work week, so you can go around and travel and enjoy life. Yeah,
exactly. Because the best part of doing something like this is when you really enjoy it, is that it doesn't even feel like work anyway, right? I mean, one of the best feelings as well is doing the grind now, so that you can sit back at Christmas and just go, oh, look at that. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, that's the best feeling in the world, right? That's so awesome. And
it's like opening another present, right?
Yeah, it's like, look, he's going up. That's mad, right? But one of the best resources that I found is a book called Profit First, which Mike Michalowicz, and I know there's also a Profit First for e-commerce sellers as well. But implementing that into your business and into, I've implemented it in my Amazon business, also in the real business as well. It takes all that stress out of it in terms of how much money am I going to make? Have I got enough for tax? That's another thing that bites people on the bum, right? So it stops you from spending money where you don't need to spend money, or making more clearer decisions, especially as you scale. Because that's another issue I think we can run into, is all this money starts coming in. We're like, I'm cashed up. I'm just going to spend money on stuff to get more, right? Whereas that's where a lot of leaks can happen as well. So if you
Right.
kind of bring that mentality to your business, it's an entity, right? Your business is like another person. That's how I view it. That you respect. You don't dump a lot of shit in there, like as in you don't pay for cars and crap that you don't need, right? And it's a clean entity that you then pay people with and pay yourself with. So got to think about it that way as well.
Well, Kirsty, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our State of E-commerce segment here. You know, you really, I think, brought it home that you really have to think about your business as an extension of you, and make sure that, you know, it's not causing you pain. It's not, you know, maybe there's a little frustration along the way, but at the end of the day, right, it's still your byproduct, and it's something that you as the individual are running. And, you know, as long as you're happy with it and having fun, then it's going to be fun and successful. So I you know, really appreciate those insights. I want to say thanks so much for joining TJ and I.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
So if you know, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can learn some more about you know, your story and the services you and Isaac offer at Real Coaching?
Yeah, so you can come to our website, www.goteamreal.com. We've got some free training and stuff on there as well, and we've also got a podcast called Sprint to Profit, and we have episodes every week, and so you can get that on the website as well, or iTunes or whatever. And then if you just want to kind of have a chat about, you know, your business or how we could help, you can actually email me direct at Kirsty@goteamreal.com as well.
Awesome. So for Ben and myself, Kirsty, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.